I'm the beautiful bastard. At 18, I seduced my stepbrother. He hated my guts. I wanted to get him pregnant, but I didn't count on him being in his rut. He tied me up. Everyone said my mother gave birth to a piece of trash. And just like they said, here I am, still messing around with my brother, Peter. The room is thick with the smell of our tangled pheromones. Downstairs, the Miller family is chatting at a party, discussing Peter's wedding plans. Every time the lights go out, Peter turns into a mad dog. I looked at the marks on my neck and shot him a glare. Are you an animal? You know my skin bruises easily, so why do you have to bite so hard? Couldn't help myself. He said it so casually as he fastened his cufflinks. Dressed in a fresh suit, he was back to looking like a refined monster. Peter was the classic hit it and quit it type. He adjusted his tie and told me to stay away for a while. What, you're done with me now that you've gotten your fun? I'm busy the next few days. Be a good boy at school and don't come back here to bother me. His voice was flat, the distance in his eyes impossible to miss. I scoffed and pulled on my shirt. Busy with what? Busy helping your fiancé pick out a wedding dress? Peter's fingers paused for a second. He didn't say anything. I picked up my fancy shirt stays and yanked him toward me by his collar. I pulled hard enough that he was forced to lean down close. If you get married, I'll wish you the best. But what happens to us after the wedding, brother? I drew out that last word, letting it hang in the air. Peter froze for a moment, then pushed me away with a cold look. He didn't answer my question. That means he doesn't want to end it yet. I smirked with contempt. Peter, you really want to have your cake and eat it too, don't you? He turned and headed downstairs for the party, reminding me to leave soon, because tonight was a formal Miller family dinner, and I was the baggage they couldn't show off in public, so I wasn't allowed to attend. My name is Justin, and me? I've never been normal. My mom was a social climber, obsessed with marrying into a rich family. Anyone could bully me, the bastard child, because no one would ever stand up for me. But I didn't just get even with those who bullied me, I made them suffer twice as much and made sure they couldn't even complain about it. I have an extreme personality, but I'm good at faking being sweet. I'll do whatever it takes to get what I want. My mom got pregnant and successfully married into the Miller family. But she underestimated how vicious these elite families could be. At 6 months pregnant, she had a miscarriage due to an allergic reaction and almost died. That summer, Peter came home from his fancy prep school. His privileged upbringing meant he was actually pretty decent to my mom and me. When a bunch of rich kids pranked me, humiliating me at a party by throwing me into a pool where I almost drowned, he was the one who stepped in to help. Peter always had this gentle smile on his face. Looking into the clear eyes of this wealthy young man, I felt a possessive urge for the first time. He was so clean, and I wanted to make him filthy. I presented as an alpha. The year he was a junior in college, I turned 18. Peter was also an alpha. The chances of an alpha getting pregnant are low, but not zero. I put something in his tea. I just didn't expect to run into him during his rut. I walked into that room. The moment the door closed, Peter was like a different person. He trapped me like a wild wolf, giving me no chance to escape. He left my entire body bruised and battered. But I got what I wanted. After that day, Peter hated my very existence. But he couldn't resist the lure of my pheromones. Every time his rut hit, he would sneak into my room. Over time, we fell into this secret, sordid relationship. On Grandpa Miller's birthday, Lily showed up. She was the only daughter of the Smiths, a sweet beta girl. The Smiths and the Millers were just arranging a marriage for business. But it seemed like Lily was genuinely interested in Peter. At the birthday party, Lily's eyes were glued to Peter, constantly trying to start conversations with him. Peter had a gentle look in his eyes, pretending to be very interested in her. I watched quietly from the second floor. I had a waiter send them 2 glasses of wine. Peter took a sip, and his tongue caught the faint taste of peach. Peach is the scent of my pheromones. I'm an alpha, but even my pheromones have this seductive, foxy scent, which I've been criticized for more than once. But I like this scent, because it makes it easy for others to let their guard down. Like right now, as Peter casually finished the entire glass. Not long after, he couldn't stop himself. He came upstairs and found me in the hallway. Didn't I tell you to stay at school? What are you doing back here? I just wanted to see what your fiancé looks like. I raised an eyebrow, my almond-shaped eyes hooking him. What, you're not happy to see me? The faint scent of my pheromones teased his nerves. Peter gritted his teeth and pulled me into a break room. A fiery kiss landed on me, his hands wrapped tightly around my waist. He always pretends to be so proper in public, but in private, he's just this pathetic, desperate creature. In the dim room, Peter stared at me like a dog, his Adam's apple bobbing frantically. In moments like these, I felt an abnormal thrill, because he had walked right into my trap. Peter's hand gripped the hem of my shirt. His palm was hot, eager. I pushed him away and grabbed his tie. What's the rush, brother? Shut up. He hated it when I called him that. I smiled and hooked his chin, making him look up. His eyes moved upward. In the corner of the break room, there was a security camera. Peter froze. His fiancée had already seen everything. When Peter went back downstairs, the atmosphere was tense. Lily's eyes were red. She had probably already tattled to her family. The party ended. The Millers gathered in the study. For the first time, I was brought into one of their private meetings, under the charge of bringing shame to the family name. Peter knelt in the center of the study, admitting his mistake. Grandma Miller looked at her most prized grandson with a broken heart, repeatedly asking him what on earth had happened. His uncle said, "Peter is usually such a good kid. That shameless Justin must have seduced him." Peter said nothing. Grandpa Miller took out a riding crop, ready to administer some family discipline. I looked at Peter's straight back. I wasn't afraid of being beaten. I was only afraid of him marrying someone else. I don't want anyone else to have what's mine. The whip landed on Peter's back. He didn't make a sound, but his fingers trembled in pain. Still not confessing? What is going on between you two? Have you no regard for the family's reputation? Grandpa Miller was yelling at Peter, but his sharp gaze was fixed on me. He raised his hand, the whip about to fall on my shoulder. Peter suddenly moved in front of me. "Grandpa," I forced him. "It has nothing to do with him." The room fell silent for a moment. I looked at him, my heart feeling like it was being pricked by needles. It's because he always protects me that I can't let him go. My brother is just that cunning. That day, Peter received a severe punishment. His back was covered in bloody welts from the whip. My mom also put on a show and gave me a slap or two. Afterward, she praised me for a job well done. She thought I was trying to climb my way into the rich family. She was wrong. I just wanted to climb into my brother's bed. Late that night, I snuck in to see Peter. I tried to put ointment on his wounds, but he told me to get lost. Peter was furious with me. I blew gently on his wounds and whispered, "Brother, please don't get married. Okay? Come fall from grace with me." If he was willing, I would run away with him. Peter stared at me with cold eyes. "Justin, who the hell do you think you are to interfere in my life? If you hadn't used your dirty tricks back then, do you think I'd be tangled up with you now?" The disgust in his eyes had never been so strong. I was stunned. I was so used to seeing him smile that I'd forgotten how terrifying he could be when he was angry. "Brother, after all this time, don't you like me even a little bit?" I finally worked up the courage to ask, even though I knew I was just setting myself up for humiliation. As expected, his voice grew even colder. "I can't stand you. How could I possibly like you? Justin, get out." I don't want to say it again. My chest felt tight, but I managed to force a smile. "I get it. I'll get lost." Peter had me sent back to school. My college course load was light. Whenever I had free time, I'd ask about what was happening at home. Mom said that Peter and Lily's engagement party was already being scheduled. The union of two powerful families wouldn't be stopped by a scandal like this. Because in the end, profit is eternal. The engagement party was held on a luxury yacht. I skipped class and snuck in, disguised as a waiter. The yacht was huge, and it took me a while to find Peter. When I found him, he was chatting with a group of his scummy friends. People around him were congratulating him, but his eyes were vacant, showing no sign of joy. Soon, Lily came to find him. The handsome man and beautiful woman were about to become husband and wife. The jealousy in my heart was about to burn me alive. If I can't have my brother, then I can't let him forget me either. As the party was in full swing, the power went out. The scent of my pheromones drifted over. Peter caught it instantly. He followed me out onto the deck. I sat on the ship's railing, the sea wind so strong I could barely open my eyes. "Justin, what are you doing here?" The impatience in Peter's eyes was obvious. He seemed to be getting more and more annoyed with me lately. Maybe he was just tired of sleeping with me and couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore. "I came to give you an engagement gift." I smiled at him, but my eyes were getting misty. Peter frowned. I stood up, the wind blowing my shirt up, making me look like I was about to fall. His eyes widened. "What are you doing? Get down from there." "Peter, I was so close to falling completely, hopelessly in love with you. Happy wedding in advance, brother." With that, I jumped backward. My disappearance was probably the best gift I could give him. I heard a panicked scream behind me. Peter's voice cracked as he frantically called for help. I'm terrified of water, but this was my only way to escape. I had been planning to leave the Miller family for a long time. I just didn't expect the plan to happen so soon. The seawater soaked my clothes. The scene from earlier flashed in my mind. Near the cabin, Peter was chatting with those trust fund kids. One of them, the one named Chad, was laughing and teasing him. "Don't you hate Justin? How'd you suddenly end up with him? How does an alpha taste?" Peter shot him a dirty look. Chad said, "We should have been crueler back then and let that tagalong drown in the pool. Then he wouldn't be clinging to you now. It's your fault for being too soft." Alan chimed in, "Ha, you still don't get it." Peter wasn't being soft. He just likes to play games. Peter's expression was blank. He still didn't say a word. His silence was a confirmation. So what I thought was kindness was just a net he'd cast for me. I was digging a trap for him, not realizing he'd had me cornered from the very beginning. But today, I planted a thorn in Peter's heart. I want him to never find peace whenever he sees the ocean. I started swimming in the opposite direction of the lighthouse. I had scouted this area before there was a small island nearby. Halfway there, someone caught up to me from behind. Peter had jumped into the sea himself, desperately grabbing onto me. He was trying to save me, but his foot got tangled in seaweed. Watching him struggle and choke on the water, I felt a flicker of hatred. He didn't care about my life back then, so why is he trying to save me now? After a few seconds of hesitation, I still helped him untangle the seaweed from his foot. I continued to swim, dragging the unconscious Peter with me. A sudden whirlpool in the sea pulled us in. I opened my eyes. I found myself in a small, rustic house. Not far from the window was the sea. The moment I moved, a plainly dressed Peter rushed over anxiously. "Honey, you're finally awake?" My whole body went rigid. "Peter, what are you talking about?" "I'm not talking nonsense." He timidly poured me a glass of water, looking embarrassed. "The people here said I have amnesia. They said you have my pheromones all over you and you're pregnant." My eyes widened. I felt like I was still dreaming. This had to be a nightmare. A young man pushed the door open. He was the homeowner's grandson, Cody. Cody was an apprentice to the village doctor and knew some basic medicine. He checked on me and said that since I'd been in the seawater, I needed to take my anti-miscarriage medicine on time. Peter brewed the medicine and brought it over for me to drink. He had never looked at me with such a careful expression before. Peter didn't dare to look me in the eye, but when he handed me things, he would steal a quick glance before quickly looking away. I looked at the dark, murky medicine in the bowl and wanted to smash it in his face. "Honey, please drink it. It's not good for the baby if you don't, and you'll get sick." "Shut up. I'm not your wife. Call me that again and I'll slap you." "Then, what should I call you?" His tone was very low, like a humble servant. The proud and arrogant Peter would never act like this. I studied him and realized this idiot really had lost his memory. There was no point in getting angry at a fool like him. A malicious smile spread across my face. "Call me Master." He paused, too embarrassed to say it. "I'll just call you Justin." "You called me Peter just now, is that my name?" "No, your real name is Dog." Peter frowned, muttering the unfamiliar name. I drank the bitter medicine, staring at him resentfully, and deliberately explained, "Dog, you know why we were in the sea? Because you got me pregnant, but you didn't want to take responsibility and were going to marry someone else. So I ran away and you chased after me. Was I really that bad?" Peter's eyes widened as he sincerely apologized to me. "I'm sorry, Justin. I don't remember, but I'll take responsibility for you. I won't bully you anymore. Please don't run away. Don't leave me." He gently tugged at my sleeve, like a puppy afraid of being abandoned. Even in his faded, worn-out clothes, he couldn't hide his superior air. According to Cody, Peter had sold everything he had on him just to save my life. I looked at Peter's loyal expression and forced a magnanimous smile. Fine. Peter felt incredibly guilty and went to find work in the fishing village the very next day. He said he needed to earn money to buy me supplements. I couldn't be bothered with him. My phone was waterlogged and wouldn't turn on. If I weren't still so weak, I would have run away already. The Miller family would find him sooner or later, and I had no desire to return to that soul-crushing place. Peter helped the fishermen sorting their catches. Every day, he'd come back and excitedly show me his spoils. All sorts of seafood. I deliberately made things difficult for him. "I don't like seafood." "Then what do you want to eat?" Chicken." I intentionally chose something I hadn't seen on the island. Peter paused for a moment, his ears turning red. He quietly made a mental note. Peter saved up money for a week and went to the next village to catch a chicken for me. When he got home, he was covered in mud, with chicken feathers stuck in his hair. Peter didn't know how to cook. His pampered, delicate hands were now covered in cuts and scrapes from taking care of me these past few days. Looking at his filthy state, I didn't give him a hard time anymore. Every night, he slept on a mat on the floor, because I wouldn't let him on the bed. This guy used to bully me all the time, and now I was going to pay him back for all of it. In the evening, Peter brought hot water to wash my feet. He really treated me like he was doting on his wife, not letting me do anything myself. Even washing my feet, he did it for me. Watching his careful and considerate actions, I felt a mix of anger and resentment. I knew very well that the real Peter would never treat me like this. He would only be nice to me on the surface, while secretly plotting with his rich friends to mess with me. I was too naive before. How could Peter ever protect the child of a mistress? He was just getting his revenge in his own way, wanting to see me lifted up by him only to be personally thrown back down. He succeeded beautifully. Peter's fingers were hot, almost hotter than the water. His fingertips brushed the sole of my foot. I'm ticklish, so I flinched. He looked up at me, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Justin, your ankles are beautiful." Peter had said the same thing before during his rut. He only got clingy when he was out of his mind, grabbing my foot and squeezing it, each time harder than the last. I looked at Dog and deliberately lifted my leg, resting my wet toes on his shoulder. Peter had a great body. The thin t-shirt couldn't hide his defined chest muscles. Water droplets soaked his shirt, revealing the faint outline of his muscles. I intentionally wiped my wet feet on his shirt. Peter's hand instinctively clasped my ankle, the bobbing of his Adam's apple speeding up. He stole a glance at me, not daring to say a word, but I knew what he was thinking. I smirked, deliberately sliding my toes slowly downward. Teasingly, I traced a line over his collarbone, his abs. Before I reached his pants, he gripped my leg tightly. Peter's eyes were terrifyingly dark. I pretended not to understand and asked innocently, "What? I can't." I hooked his side with my big toe. That was his sensitive spot. Peter's breathing grew heavy. "Justin, He looked up at me with wet, pleading eyes. "Tonight, can I sleep on the bed?" "No." Peter looked down, dejected. His desire was obvious, the thin fabric of his pants doing little to hide it. I chose to ignore it, imperiously telling him to dry my feet. He held my foot, drying it very slowly. My pale ankle was rubbed over and over in his palm. He even deliberately placed my foot on his thigh, very close to his groin. Sure enough, even as an idiot, he was still a pervert. I kicked him and burrowed under the covers. He grunted. Peter wasn't angry, in fact, he seemed to enjoy it a little. I slept with my back to him, but I could feel him staring at me for a long time. Cody said I was recovering well and could walk around freely. During the day, I would wander around. I still wasn't used to the fact that there was a life growing inside me. Seeing me walking on the rocky path, Cody was afraid I would fall and helped me onto the sandy ground. Up close, he blushed a little. I'd seen that look many times before. I quickly pulled my hand back and teased him with a smile. The baby isn't yours, so why are you so worried about me? Cody rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. This is the first time I've ever seen a pregnant alpha. You need to be extra careful. If something goes wrong, you could easily lose your life. I shrugged. I wasn't exactly looking forward to this baby either. The child wouldn't be acknowledged by its father, and I had no idea how to raise a kid. Rather than let it suffer the same fate as me, it would be better if it were never born. Cody said, "Did you have a fight with your husband? You two seem very tense." "He's not my husband." "Then you—" He glanced at my stomach. I gave him a wicked grin. It was an accident. A mistake young people make when passions run high. I've been with so many guys, who knows if this kid is even his? Cody was young and naive. The boy, who had just turned 18, blushed beet red at my words. He changed the subject, saying he wanted to buy me a coconut water. I turned around and saw Peter, holding a chicken. He stood there, stunned, his eyes dark. Peter went back to the room to make chicken soup. He was completely silent, but the sound of him chopping vegetables was loud and aggressive. Dinner was exceptionally quiet. He had no appetite, but I drank 2 large bowls of chicken soup. I could tell he was unhappy. But I was happy. This bastard needed to be taught a lesson. That night, Peter wanted to wash my feet. I pulled my foot back and said I'd do it myself. He withdrew his hand, looking dejected. After the lights were out, he lay on his floor mat. I'm a light sleeper, and with him tossing and turning next to me, I couldn't sleep either. Just as I was about to kick him, I suddenly smelled a scent of cedarwood. It was crisp and clean, yet carried a heavy sense of oppression. Peter's pheromones. Suddenly, a hurt and low voice came from the floor. "Justin, why did you say I'm not your husband? We were never married. But I said I'd take responsibility for you. And the baby? If it's not mine, whose could it be? Who knows? You were about to get married after sleeping with me. Am I not allowed to have some fun with other people?" Peter's chest felt tight. His body was hot. A wave of anger mixed with an uncontrollable emotion surging through him. I was just making things up to piss him off. But I might have gone too far. Peter suddenly got up, climbed onto the bed, and pinned me down. I was startled and slapped him across the face. He didn't dodge, instead grabbing my hands and pinning them on either side of my head. "Who else have you been with? Why should I tell you?" Peter's eyes were dark, a thick possessiveness rolling in their depths. "How do you play with them? Show me. Are you crazy? Get off me." Peter leaned in to kiss me. When he got close, he completely lost control, like his soul had left his body. I noticed his body was hot and realized his rut was probably coming. I gave him a push. The more I resisted, the more excited he became. Peter kissed me sloppily, but his hands knew exactly where to go. "Tell me, what have you done with other guys? Was it like this?" My waist trembled. "That bastard." I bit him hard. Peter paused, licking the blood from the corner of his mouth. He stared at me with those deep eyes, his desire mixed with a hint of annoyance. I watched his expression and suddenly realized something. The old Peter never got jealous and rarely showed much emotion. For a moment, I found it novel. "Dog, are you jealous?" Even as an idiot, Peter was still just as proud and arrogant. He didn't answer, just lowered his head to bite me. I pressed against his shoulder, slowly releasing my pheromones to soothe him. His pheromones tangled with mine. The light in Peter's eyes softened. "Justin, don't play with other guys. From now on, you can play with me, okay?" His nose brushed against the side of my face, his attempt to please me obvious. But there was a part of him that was very dangerous. I tried to push him away with my hand, but he just kissed my fingers instead. A trail of hot, tiny kisses fell all over me. His pheromones started to seduce me. I started to feel hot too. I gritted my teeth as he held me in his arms and coaxed me. Justin, how did you used to play with me? Teach me. So soft. Did I ever bite here? Why aren't you talking? Don't you like it? Peter was a natural at this. He held my ankle, licking and biting it repeatedly. Leaving marks wasn't enough, he had to keep going higher. In the end, I was a hot, sweaty mess under the covers. My pajamas were soaked. Peter emerged from the blanket, his mouth moist and glistening. Justin, did that feel good? I bit my lip and said nothing. He snuggled up against me. Honey, won't you help me out too? Please? Get lost. I weakly pushed him away. Peter's eyes were glowing green, like a hungry wolf's. Finally, I brought up that this wasn't good for the baby, and he finally stopped. Peter took a very long, cold shower. When he came back, he didn't lie on the floor mat. Instead, he held me as we slept. The next day, he went to work as usual. He would give me the best things he found to eat first. Peter said that no matter whose baby it was, as long as I gave birth to it, he would take care of it. But he wouldn't let me get too close to other men. Every day when he came back, he would sniff me. If he smelled another alpha on me, he would pester me with questions. He didn't sleep on the floor anymore either, he started sleeping with me. Scolding him didn't work anymore. He had learned to be shameless. He had really become a dog. Under his care, I gained some weight. Every time I saw how worried he was about me, for a split second, I wanted things to stay this way forever. Forgetting the past and just continuing to live with him on this strange island didn't seem so bad. In the evening, Cody brought me some vegetables. I was planning to make coconut chicken with Peter tonight, but I waited until late and he never came back. I looked out at the dark sea, a little worried. Did something happen to him? Or did he get his memory back and just leave? Suddenly, the village chief came looking for me. He said Peter had gotten into a fight today and that I should go to the clinic at the edge of the village to find him. When I arrived, a group of people were outside, still shouting that they were going to settle the score with Peter. The two men at the front had bruised and swollen faces, surrounded by their relatives. They were all holding sticks of various sizes and looked menacing. I casually grabbed a cane and pointed it at their noses. Who wants to settle a score with him? You'll have to settle it with me first. I was all too familiar with fighting. As long as you're not afraid to die, no one can beat you. The village chief saw what was happening and came over to mediate. He said that Peter had gotten into a verbal argument with some people which led to the fight. I didn't believe it. Peter was such a refined person, even as an idiot, he wouldn't be so impulsive. You'd better tell me the truth, or I swear I'll fight you all to the death today. I said it with a cold face, my threat hanging in the air. The group looked at me, their expressions turning hesitant. They were probably just trying to extort money, not actually cause a fatality. Suddenly, the door behind me opened. Peter had a bandage wrapped around his head and some bruises on his face. I stood protectively in front of him and turned to meet his cool gaze. It was just for a second, but it was like my dashing, elegant stepbrother was back. I was startled, a strange nervousness creeping into my heart. Peter stepped forward, took the cane from my hand, and said softly, "Justin, I'm fine. Don't hurt yourself." Peter explained to the village chief that on his way back, he heard those two fishermen gossiping about me. They said I was too pretty and was probably a prostitute from the city who came to this remote place because I couldn't make it there. Peter got angry and started arguing with them. If you don't believe me, you can ask Al at the general store for proof. He heard everything when he came to break up the fight. Peter's tone was calm and steady, as if he couldn't be bothered to argue with them. The two fishermen at the front fell silent. The village chief played the peacemaker, scolded them a bit, and then sent them away. It was dark on the way back. Peter glanced at my stomach and reached out to hold my hand. I felt that something was strange. Dog usually spoke in a weak, timid voice, not with the calm, resonant tone he just used. "Is the wound on your head okay? Does it hurt a lot?" "It's fine." I deliberately tested him. "Did you remember anything from before?" Peter answered quickly. "No." He was speaking less. Not at all like Dog. Back home, Peter poured water for me to wash my feet. I watched him, but I still felt like he hadn't recovered his memory. If the real Peter were here, knew I was pregnant, and found out I'd been bullying him, he would probably try to kill me. When we went to sleep, Peter kept stroking my hair, as if he was making sure I was right there beside him. Peter's head was injured, so he rested at home for a few days. He still cooked for me and went on walks with me as usual. While he was taking a shower, I went in to get some clothes. Peter immediately covered himself with a towel. In the steamy room, his body was partially obscured. It's not like I haven't seen it before. What could a towel possibly hide? I gave him a teasing raise of my eyebrows. Peter pressed his lips together, looked away, and urged me to get out quickly. I deliberately did the opposite and moved closer to him. Why are you so shy? Didn't you used to beg me to shower with you? Want me to help you? Peter glanced at me, hesitating. He seemed to really want to say yes, but his eyes fell on my stomach, and he gave a lazy smile. Stop messing around, Justin. My smile froze. I stopped teasing him and left the bathroom immediately. That tone and that smile were all too familiar. In the past, when Peter got tired of me messing with him, he would say that to me with the same weary tone. My heart was filled with a sense of dread. This uncertainty made me feel completely uneasy. That night, just as Peter was about to get into bed, I deliberately pushed him away. You're sleeping on the floor tonight. Why? I didn't do anything wrong. He looked at me with pitiful eyes. He looked just like dog. I clenched my fists and turned my face away. I don't want to sleep with you. It makes me feel sick. The person next to me's gaze turned cold. But when he spoke, his tone was still soft. What's the reason? I'll be good tonight. I won't bother you, okay? No. The smell of you makes me uncomfortable. Peter sniffed his clothes and looked back at me. Hurt. Then I'll go take another shower. Don't bother. Don't you get it? I hate your pheromones. The other omegas here smell so much better. I've realized I don't like you at all. I must have been out of my mind before. As soon as the words left my mouth, the way Peter looked at me changed. No matter how deep he tried to hide it, the anger was unmistakable. Say that again. That familiar tone. Every time I talked back to Peter and he was punishing me severely in bed, he would threaten me just like that. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively backed away. You should get some rest. I'll go sleep next door. Next door was Cody's room. Cody was an alpha, so it wouldn't be a big deal for me to crash on his sofa. Peter grabbed me, his eyes wet and pleading. Are you going to leave me all alone? You promised you wouldn't leave me. I choked for a moment, struggling to push him away. Peter, can you just stop pretending? He couldn't pull off the dog act anymore. Peter had been spoiled his whole life, the center of everyone's universe. He couldn't fake that kind of careful, humble demeanor. The room was silent for 2 seconds. Peter let out a sneer. When he looked up again, the feigned softness in his eyes had been replaced by a cold fog. You found out that quickly? I knew it. Every dream has to end. I just hated that it had to. Peter wouldn't let me leave, blocking the doorway. What, now that I'm not that idiot, you don't want to be with me anymore? What do you think? Are you forgetting everything you've done? Peter pressed his lips together, wisely avoiding the topic. It's getting late. You should get some rest. I can't sleep with you here. I didn't want to be in the same room as him. Peter gritted his teeth. I can sleep on the floor, but you are not going next door. With that, he lay down on the floor mat. The proud and arrogant Peter had bowed his head to me for the first time. We slept in the same room, but it felt like we were miles apart. Neither of us slept well that night. When morning came, we were back to the relationship we both wanted to avoid. The next day, I asked Cody to borrow his phone. I wanted to call the Miller family to come and get Peter, but he wouldn't let me, grabbing the phone from me as we argued. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here with you. You don't want to go back to the Millers, and neither do I. That's your business. If you stick with me, you'll only drag me down. I snatched the phone back and dialed a number. I didn't remember the Miller's number. I only remembered Leo's. Leo was the illegitimate son of a wealthy businessman in the city. He was cold and aloof, and when he was being bullied, I saved him. He owed me a favor and promised he would do anything for me in the future. The call connected, and I heard Leo's voice. Peter's face darkened as he hung up the phone, forbidding me from calling again. I glared at him angrily. What are you doing? Didn't you tell me not to interfere in your life? Hurry up and go back to your wedding. I'll disappear. Who asked you to disappear? The marriage was just a family arrangement. You have a child now, I'll take responsibility for you. Ha, don't disgust me. I'm getting rid of the baby. You don't need to worry about it. Peter's pupils trembled, and he gripped my shoulders, turning me to face him. Justin, what are you talking about? Why would you get rid of it? What do you think? Have you forgotten what happened? Do you want the child to know that his own father almost killed his other father? I stared at him coldly. After a long moment, Peter's fingers loosened their grip, falling away helplessly. He remembered. He would always remember. In high school, his mother got sick, but his father didn't even come back to see her. When he finally returned, he brought a mistress and her tag-along child with him. That's why Peter began his long-term plan for revenge against me. Back then, I was naive enough to think he was different from the other rich kids. Peter, freshman year, when I was locked in the cellar at that party, I didn't cry or make a scene. You were disappointed, weren't you? So later, you had Chad throw me in the pool, just so you could swoop in like a savior. Make me fall for you. Watch me grovel at your feet, begging for something I could never have. Did watching me like that make you feel good? Peter was truly more cunning than I could have ever imagined. He looked down, avoiding my eyes, and shook his head weakly. I wasn't trying to bully you back then. I just saw you asking Leo for help, saw the two of you bonding, and it made me feel uncomfortable. Chad wanted to help me mess with you, so he took you to the pool. I wanted to save you, but Leo beat me to it. You're right. I did enjoy playing the role of your savior, deliberately messing with you. But it was only when I saw you getting close to Leo that I realized my feelings for you were more than just revenge. The ugly thoughts Peter had hidden for years were finally exposed. He was never willing to admit he liked a shameful tag-along. Now, he finally had the courage to face it. I stared at him, stunned, my heart feeling like it was sinking into the deep sea, unable to breathe. Suddenly, 1,000 little details clicked into place. Peter, you're a high-ranking alpha. That time I drugged you, you knew about it, didn't you? He didn't say anything. He admitted it. Peter knew I had drugged him, and he walked right into my trap. That way, he could pretend to be the victim, righteously blame me, and use it as an excuse to get involved with me. So vile and so cunning. I stood there, frozen. I finally understood what it meant to be too clever for your own good. Peter, I really underestimated you. I sneered. In this game, I was the one being played from the very beginning. Peter's face was pale as he looked down. Justin, I admit it. I did a lot of terrible things back then. I can apologize to you. I don't need it. I never wanted to climb into the Miller family, and I never wanted to ruin your family. You were the ones who were hostile to me from the start. That's why I became like a hedgehog, with all my quills raised. Because I was scared. No one could protect me, so I had to protect myself. I thought Peter was genuinely protecting me. I never imagined he just enjoyed watching me get played and deceived, just to satisfy his thirst for revenge. A look of painful regret flashed in Peter's eyes. Justin, I'll never bully you again. Give me another chance. Can we start over, please? Start over? After all this time, you're not tired of me yet? I laughed coldly, dodging the hand he reached out to hold. His face fell, ashen. How could I ever get tired of you? Do you know how relieved I was when my memory came back and I found myself on that strange island with you? Everyone in the Miller family is watching me. They don't all have my best interests at heart, they just want to groom me into the perfect heir. After you showed up, I did hate you for a while. But later, I realized my true feelings and started planning our future. I was going to get a divorce as soon as I secured my position as heir, and then I was going to take you away from the Miller estate. He had never mentioned any of this before, but it didn't matter anymore. What happened can never be erased from my heart. That evening, Leo arrived on the island with his people. The moment the call was hung up, he had heard my voice, so he came to rescue me immediately. The outside world thought Peter and I were dead. Leo still had that same cold expression, as if nothing could ever faze him. It had been a while, but he greeted me simply. I asked him to give Cody a sum of money as a reward. Cody had been taking care of us this whole time. Peter stood to the side, watching us speak in low voices, his fists clenched tightly. As we boarded the helicopter, Cody waved a reluctant goodbye. If I have the chance, I'll come back to see him. 2 hours later, the helicopter landed on a helipad back in the city. Peter wanted me to go back with him, but I pushed him away in disgust. That's your home, not mine. Let's not see each other again. I decisively followed Leo and left. Leo was 3 years older than me and had done well in business. As an illegitimate son, he originally didn't have the capital to start a business. I used to secretly help him out, and that's how he got his first round of funding. The money was actually my mom's, but I used it for investing. Leo didn't disappoint me. He's now worth tens of billions and is powerful enough to compete with his father's family. He took me to a private villa. I casually mentioned that the decor was nice. Leo said, if you like it, it's yours. Consider it a dividend on your investment. He said it with a completely straight face, as if a few tens of millions were nothing to him. I sat on the sofa. I'd been running around all day, but I couldn't sleep. I was 4 months along now, and my stomach was starting to show a small bump. I still hadn't figured out how to deal with this new life. Leo didn't ask me about the baby. He just told me to get some rest, left 2 bodyguards for me, and then left. After all these years, I was used to his robotic demeanor. It was like Leo was born without the gene for emotion. He couldn't like anyone, and he couldn't accept anyone's affection. That's why we became friends. Because a simple friendship like ours wouldn't be complicated by other things. I stayed at the villa for a week. I ate a lot and I slept a lot. Life was pretty comfortable. But sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and instinctively glance at the side of the bed. Realizing I had already left the island, I'd feel a pang of disappointment. One night I couldn't sleep. I had left the balcony door open. A breeze blew in, carrying a faint scent of cedarwood. Just as I was about to open my eyes, I smelled a strange fragrance in the air. The next second, I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I was still in a villa. But this wasn't the hillside mansion Leo had given me. It was a 2-story villa on the outskirts of the city, by the sea. I sat up in surprise and looked around. The familiar scent of pheromones in the room disgusted me. I ran downstairs, and a fragrant smell wafted from the kitchen. Peter walked out carrying a pot of chicken soup. He smiled at me warmly, as if we had never argued. "You're awake? Come and eat." I looked at the chicken soup on the table. It was exactly the same as the kind dog used to make. I looked around. There were security cameras installed in the villa, and bodyguards in black suits stood guard outside. There was no escaping. I might as well fill my stomach first. I sat down and took a sip of the soup. Peter was surprised by my compliance, his eyes brightening as he sat down next to me. "Is it good?" "It's terrible. Just as bad as his cooking used to be. Barely edible." I took a few sips, but when I saw the chicken meat in the bowl, I felt a wave of nausea. It was morning sickness. My face darkened, and I put down the bowl, having lost my appetite. Peter looked at me with concern. "Are you full? You should eat a little more." "No thanks. Just looking at you makes me lose my appetite." He was speechless. Peter lowered his head, silently picked up my bowl, and finished the soup in it. I paused. Peter would never eat someone else's leftovers. Dog, on the other hand, wasn't picky at all. I studied him, a flicker of hope rising within me. Peter looked up and met my gaze. "What is it?" His tone was calm, instantly shattering my illusion. I shook my head. Dog was never coming back. "Peter, what are you planning to do? Keeping me locked up here?" "Nothing. Just keeping you company while you're pregnant." I went back and already told my family I'm breaking off the engagement. He said it calmly, as if he had planned it all along. I let out a cold laugh. "Peter, aren't you pathetic? When I was all over you, why couldn't you have been a little nicer to me? You have to give me some time to come to my senses. I'll start being good to you now, okay?" He said it with such confidence. Years of elite education had taught him that hard work and persistence always pay off. But he didn't know that love was the exception. The moment I decided to jump into the sea, I decided I would never go back. It's useless, Peter. I was done with you a long time ago. I said it lightly, but he gripped the spoon in his hand so tightly his knuckles turned white. Peter kept me trapped in the villa for a month. The security was extremely tight. Every night, he would come into my room to sleep with me. When I yelled at him, he would sleep on the floor. It seemed Peter had gotten used to sleeping near me. When I was fast asleep, my hand would dangle off the edge of the bed. He would carefully hook his finger around mine. While Peter was still lost in his fantasy of making it up to me, the Miller family called. He was in the shower, so I answered the phone. It was his uncle's voice, saying that if Peter didn't come home, they would throw my mother, Linda, into the sea. Linda may have been crooked, but she had never mistreated me growing up. She was the only family I had left. I urgently told Peter to go home. He had just gotten out of the shower and quickly started changing. Don't worry, I'll go right now. He tried to calm me down, telling me not to get too worked up. But I couldn't calm down. The people in the Miller family were all devious. If they wanted to do something to my mom, it would be as easy as flipping a switch. I had to go with Peter and get my mom out of there. Peter hesitated for a moment but eventually agreed to take me with him. Before we left, he repeatedly reminded me not to do anything drastic, that my health was the most important thing. At 9 o'clock that night, he drove me back to the old estate in his black Bentley. On the way, I kept calling Linda, trying to check on her. She never picked up. My heart was pounding with anxiety. As the car was passing through an intersection, an unmarked van suddenly sped out. Peter couldn't swerve in time and crashed straight into it. There was a deafening crash. The world spun around me. When I came to, the car was flipped over on the ground. I was being held tightly in someone's arms, my vision upside down. Warm blood was trickling down my head. The blood was thick with the scent of cedarwood pheromones. Peter? Peter? I called out weakly. The person holding me moved. Peter shattered the car window and dragged me out. Outside, the air was thick with the foul smell of gasoline. The driver of the white van was covered in blood, unconscious inside his vehicle. I looked at his face and remembered who he was. Lily's driver. I had seen him once at a party. Peter pulled me out, but we hadn't taken more than a few steps when the van exploded. Immediately after, Peter's Bentley was also engulfed in the flames. In an instant, the fire raged, turning both cars into blackened wrecks. A violent shockwave from the explosion hit us. Peter held me as we fell together onto the grass. He was bleeding a lot, but he was still protecting me. I felt a pain in my stomach and clutched my shirt tightly. Peter, it hurts. Justin, don't fall asleep. I'm calling an ambulance right now. The smell of disinfectant in the hospital was overwhelming. It was uncomfortable even in my sleep. When I finally opened my eyes, the sunlight outside stung them. It took me a while to remember what had happened. Leo came over and poured me a glass of water. Don't try to get up yet. The nurse said you need to rest. Why? I froze for a second and instinctively touched my stomach. The slight roundness was gone. My abdomen was flat, as if something was missing. Is the baby gone? Leo nodded. He wasn't one to beat around the bush and just relayed what the doctor had said. The doctor said an alpha's body isn't suited for pregnancy, and this baby would have been hard to carry to term anyway. You almost died during the surgery. You're lucky to be awake now, so you need to rest and recover. I listened quietly, a wave of sadness washing over me. Even though I hadn't been looking forward to this child, now that it was really gone, my heart felt an empty ache. Leo, what about my mom? How is she? He was silent for a moment. My heart skipped a beat, and I grabbed his hand. What happened to my mom? Did the Millers torture her? Please, you have to help me get her out. I'm begging you. You can have my shares in your company. Leo's Adam's apple bobbed. He couldn't lie. Justin, your aunt, she passed away the day before yesterday. The police found her body. She was locked in the Millers' warehouse. When she found out they were using her to threaten you, she escaped late at night. She took a lot of gold and jewelry with her, and she ran into robbers in an alley and then, I just listened, not even realizing when the tears started to fall. That foolish woman, Linda. Didn't she always act like I didn't matter to her? Why did she try so hard to escape? And if she was gonna run, why did she have to take all that jewelry with her? Was money more important than her life? Overnight, I was all alone. It's all gone. Everything is gone. I murmured, my mind a complete blank. My heart felt like it was being crushed by a heavy stone, and I couldn't breathe. Leo saw my expression change and immediately called a doctor. I lay in bed, feeling completely drained. After the doctor checked on me, he reminded me to take my medicine. Before he left, he said casually, by the way, is the alpha who came in with you your husband? He injured a tendon in his leg during the explosion and hasn't woken up yet. It's unlikely his leg will ever be back to normal. He's not my husband. He has nothing to do with me. The doctor was taken aback and gave an awkward smile. 2 days later, Peter still hadn't woken up. He wasn't even dead, but the Miller family was already crying up a storm. And what about Linda? Who would remember that vain, social climbing woman? She spent her whole life pretending to be rich, only to die for a pile of money. I let out a self-deprecating laugh and wiped the tears from the corner of my eye. Leo came in with dinner and saw me secretly crying. He didn't know how to comfort people and just said stiffly, I bought the cherries you like. You can have some after dinner. I had no appetite and only ate a little bit of porridge. Leo handed me a report. It was about the car crash. I had assumed the Smiths was retaliating against the Millers for breaking off the engagement. But the report showed that the Lynn's driver had been introduced to them by Grandpa Miller himself. So, the car crash was orchestrated by someone in the Miller family. As for who, that was impossible to know. Maybe it was Peter's uncle, hoping to get rid of Peter so his own son could become the heir. Or maybe it was Grandpa Miller, wanting to destroy me and give Peter a warning. The Miller's world was a treacherous maze. I couldn't figure it out. Leo quietly said he could help me get revenge. The Miller family's tech division hadn't produced any new products for a while and was currently competing with Leo's company for a new drone project. People who come together for profit will eventually be torn apart by it. Leo knew how to make the Millers turn on each other. I smiled at him. Thanks. Don't mention it. If the revenge fails due to cost issues, you won't get your dividend this year. Leo was only sensitive to numbers. He didn't notice the look on my face. Sometimes I really wanted to punch him. After dinner, he was about to leave. I called out to him. Leo, do one last thing for me. Okay. Send me abroad. I want to go somewhere no one knows me. Before leaving the country, I took my mom's ashes with me. She was always cold, so I buried her in a warm place. Life abroad was peaceful. No one knew me and I didn't want to know anyone else. But with this face, whenever I went out, some alpha would always try to hit on me. They thought I was an omega. When they found out I was an alpha, some of them got even more excited. It was incredibly annoying. In my free time, I would 3D print jewelry and other trinkets and burn them as offerings for Linda. She was such a vain person who loved beautiful things she couldn't show up in the afterlife looking shabby. I lived on a street in a southern coastal town for a while. Leo would occasionally come to Italy for meetings or business, and he would have dinner with me. Like a robot, he would report the latest news and share this year's profit numbers with me. I would listen numbly, my only thought being to gossip about why his tie was crooked today. Before I could say anything, he took a call. For the first time, an expression of anger crossed Leo's face. He said goodbye to me and left in a hurry. I thought to myself, there's probably some good drama on the horizon. Suddenly one day, the house across the street was rented out. The renovations were loud and noisy. From across the street, I irritably opened my window. The person opposite me was arranging some newly bought plants. I looked at the person and froze. Peter had that familiar, gentle smile on his face. He had just raised his hand to wave at me. I slammed the window shut without a change in expression. How the hell did that bastard find me here? When I went downstairs for dinner that night, Peter deliberately sat across from me. I could tell his leg hadn't fully healed. He walked with a slight limp. He ordered a Chinese meal for me. It included a small tureen of chicken soup. I don't like chicken anymore. Then what do you like? As long as it's from you, I don't like it. Peter fell silent. He quietly moved the meal in front of himself. Justin, why did you leave without a word? I was so worried about you. Worried about what? I'm not carrying your kid anymore. You can drop the act. I'm being sincere. He raised his voice, staring at me intently. After you left, I thought about you every day. I sent people everywhere to find you. I did physical therapy every single day in the hospital, just so I could get out sooner and find you. Peter's heartfelt confession earned only a flat response from me. He looked a little defeated but continued in a solemn tone. Justin, I've left the Miller family. I've given up my position as heir. From now on, wherever you go, I'll go. Peter was a man of his word. He lived right across from me, able to track my every move. I moved once. He found me in less than a week. Peter had shed his precious young master persona and become completely shameless. It was so annoying. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him. When he got tired of chasing me, he'd naturally give up. The weather was nice on the weekend. A lot of handsome, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guys would go to the beach to swim and surf. I grabbed my surfboard and went too. As soon as I got to the beach, a lot of alphas' eyes were on me. A tall, white teenager came up to me and asked, "Hey, want to learn how to surf? I can teach you." No thanks. I dragged my surfboard to the area with the biggest waves. I'd been living here for a while and had already learned how to do it. Extreme sports are great for an adrenaline rush, and the thrill of successfully meeting a challenge is particularly addictive. At the crest of the highest wave, I lost my footing and fell into the sea. Someone suddenly rushed in and pulled me up. Peter looked at me nervously. "Are you crazy? Aren't you afraid of water? How dare you play with this?" That time in high school when I fell into the pool, I almost drowned. Although it left me with a fear of water, I had been working hard to overcome it ever since. I won't allow myself to have any weaknesses. I'm not afraid of water anymore. Peter, that's all in the past. He understood the meaning behind my words and didn't say anything else. I pushed him away with a blank expression and wiped the water from my face. I dragged my surfboard to the beach to rest. That white teenager came over again, complimenting me on how cool I looked surfing just now. He bought me a drink and, as he handed it to me, asked for my number. I smiled and deliberately didn't refuse. I walked and chatted with the boy. Peter followed me, his face ashen. His limping figure looked a bit pathetic. He carefully watched my expression, not daring to speak, afraid of making me angry again. Looking like that, he really did resemble dog. After that day, Peter followed me everywhere. If someone hit on me, he would grit his teeth in the background. If I was in danger, he would be the first to rush in. Peter would also play tricks on me. He'd fake injuries, act weak, and play the victim. He even chased away all my potential suitors. I didn't even spare him a glance. I'd seen all these tricks before. One day, Peter brought me a king crab. When I opened the door, Leo was also there. I was making tea. Leo took the big crab from his hand with a deadpan expression. "Thanks." Peter didn't let go, looking annoyed. "So late. Why are you still here?" Justin invited me for tea. It was literally just tea. But Peter thought it was something more. I finished making the tea and came out of the kitchen to see he still hadn't left. "Didn't I tell you not to come here?" "Justin, I want some tea too." "Get lost." I pushed him away and closed the door. Peter didn't give up. He went back to his house and watched us through the window. Leo drank his tea while telling me he had won the drone project. Then he gave me a huge dividend. He said the Miller family's finances were struggling, and his uncle's son becoming CEO wasn't doing much good. Peter probably knew, but he still hadn't gone back. It seemed he really intended to cut ties with his family completely. Leo glanced out the window where a figure flashed past. He spoke casually as he fastened his cufflinks. "How long are you going to string Peter along?" "Please, I'm really not stringing him along. He's been following you for so long. Will you ever forgive him?" "Whether I forgive him or not, what does it matter? What's lost can never be brought back." I propped my head on my hand and looked at the dark sky. People's hearts are too treacherous. I'm really scared of it all. Instead of trying to guess and second guess, I'd rather just do things I enjoy. The money Leo gave me was a lot. I could go anywhere in the world. Maybe one day, Peter will never be able to find me again. I'm gonna buy a new surfboard and get some fries at the beach. From now on, I'm only living for myself.